Welcome to Nordic Nights. Tonight, I have three extraordinary tales to share with you, each one filled with mystery, wonder, and a touch of the unknown. These stories have been passed down, shared among friends and family, and now it's time to share them with you. Gather around the campfire, and let's begin with the first story. It's something that happened when I was around 13 years old, give or take a year. A memory that has stayed with me ever since. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up to a strange humming sound. I can't recall the exact time or date, but I remember it being summertime. For some reason, I felt compelled to get out of bed and find the source of this sound. Normally, I wouldn't be bothered by strange noises because I love my sleep. But this night was different. I got up and looked out of my bedroom window. What I saw next is something I'll never forget. There, in the sky, was an orange, cigar-shaped object emitting a bright orange light. It came from the left, made a sudden stop, and just hovered there, motionless, about 30 to 40 meters above the ground between two buildings. I couldn't believe my eyes. The object was around 20 meters long, tapering at both ends, just like a cigar. It hovered there for about 30 seconds before it started behaving strangely. It moved about 20 meters, first to the left, then to the right, as if it was observing or examining something. Then, without any period of acceleration, it shot upwards at an incredible speed and disappeared out of my sight. I was wide awake, filled with excitement and disbelief. I ran to the kitchen to grab a camera, hoping to capture the phenomenon if it returned. For the next 1 to 2 hours, I watched the sky from my window, waiting, but it never came back. Excitedly, I went to wake up my brother, eager to tell him what I had seen. But he didn't believe me. He thought I was dreaming and was annoyed that I woke him up on his day off. This memory has stayed vividly in my mind, and I know for certain it wasn't a dream. Whenever I share this story, I'm often met with skepticism and ridicule. People don't believe me, and sometimes I even doubt myself because of their reactions. But deep down, I know what I saw. I'm sharing my story here in the hope that someone else might have experienced something similar, and to let you know that you're not alone. This isn't something I've talked about in years, but I felt it was time to put it out there. It was a clear autumn evening in rural Finland, and my friend Sanna decided to go for a walk in the nearby forest to clear her mind. She had been going through a tough time and found solace in nature. The sun had just set, and the sky was a beautiful gradient of orange and purple. As she walked deeper into the forest, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. After about an hour, Sanna reached a small clearing she often visited. She sat down on a fallen log, taking in the serene surroundings. Suddenly, she noticed a faint, pulsating light in the sky. At first, she thought it was a distant airplane, but the light grew brighter and seemed to be coming closer. Her curiosity piqued. She stood up and watched as the light approached. To her amazement, the light transformed into a distinct shape, a smooth metallic craft, unlike anything she had ever seen. It was roughly the size of a small bus and hovered silently above the clearing. The craft emitted a soft hum, and multicolored lights flickered along its edges. Sanna's heart raced, but she couldn't tear her eyes away. Then a small hatch opened on the underside of the craft, and a beam of light descended to the ground. From this beam emerged a figure, tall, slender, and humanoid in shape. The being had smooth gray skin and large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. It moved with a grace that was almost otherworldly. Sanna was frozen with a mixture of fear and fascination. The being approached her slowly, its movements gentle and deliberate. When it was just a few feet away, it stopped and seemed to study her. Despite her fear, Sanna felt an overwhelming sense of peace emanating from the creature. The being extended a hand, and to Sanna's surprise, she felt compelled to reach out and touch it. As their hands met, a flood of emotions and images filled her mind, visions of distant worlds like advanced civilizations, and a deep sense of connection. It was as if the being was communicating with her telepathically, sharing its knowledge and experiences. After what felt like an eternity, the being released her hand and stepped back. The hatch on the craft opened once more, and the being floated back up into the light. The craft began to rise, its lights pulsing rhythmically. Within moments, it shot upwards into the sky and disappeared from view. Santa stood there in the clearing, trying to process what had just happened. She felt changed, as if a part of her had been awakened. She knew she had to share her story, even if people wouldn't believe her. When she finally returned home, she wrote down every detail, determined to preserve the memory of her encounter. Whenever I talk to Santa about that night, she always emphasizes the profound sense of peace and connection she felt. It wasn't just an encounter with an extraterrestrial, it was an experience that reshaped her understanding of the universe and our place in it. It was the beginning of the Dad's Week, a time when I would take the kids to our family cottage after work on Fridays. This tradition brought us immense joy, and this particular Friday was no different. The cottage is my grandmother's old house, nestled in the serene countryside. My kids, born in 2007, 2014, and 2016, were with me, excited as always. The journey from Seinäjoki to Vimpel takes about an hour. The kids were engrossed in their Pokemon game during the drive. Upon arriving in Vimpel, we decided to head to Karjanlahti Fishing Harbor, a spot we often visited because it had a Pokemon gym. It was pitch dark when we reached the harbor, and Lapajärvi was eerily quiet. We stayed in the park for maybe 3 minutes, just enough time to conquer the Pokemon gym. Afterward, we continued towards our cottage, which is just over a kilometer from the harbor. Driving along the small road from the harbor towards the cottage, we passed through a wooded area before reaching a couple of houses on the left near the lake. From the road, you get a good view of Lapajärvi. That's when we all noticed it, an intense light hovering above the water near the houses. It was a sight none of us had seen before in such a familiar place. Intrigued, we continued to the cottage, turned around, and drove back to get a better look. The light was still there, unwavering. We decided to head back to the fishing harbor to see if we could spot it from there. Surprisingly, from the harbor, the light was nowhere to be seen. Given the distance, it should have been visible from the harbor as well. All we saw was a glow that seemed to illuminate the surroundings, but the source of the light itself was hidden. We drove back to the spot near the houses, and there it was again, the mysterious light, perfectly round, hovering silently above the water. My daughter, born in 2007, took a few pictures with her phone, but in the darkness, the photos didn't capture much. The light seemed to emit rays to the sides, something not visible to the naked eye. It was perfectly round, high above the water, and eerily silent. We eventually returned to the cottage, puzzled and fascinated by what we had seen. The next day, after dawn, we drove back to the house in the harbor, but the light was gone. There was no sign of anything unusual on the lake. It was as if the light had never been there. The frozen lake wouldn't have supported a vehicle or a snowmobile at that time. Could a person have been out there? The light remained a mystery, something that we saw clearly but couldn't explain. It didn't move, it just hovered there, silently illuminating the night. It's an encounter that left us all wondering what exactly we had witnessed that night on the shores of Lapajärvi. Thank you for joining us on Nordic Nights. I hope these extraordinary tales have captivated your imagination and left you with a sense of wonder about the mysteries that surround us. If you've enjoyed these stories, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Share your own experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your heart open to the unknown.